Hi, Shanna Rowe Jackson here from Caution Artists at Play, and today I want to talk a little bit about staying focused and patient while working on art, basically how to keep motivated while you're working on an in-depth piece. This is a question I get a lot online, or a comment that I get a lot on my artwork, which is basically, how are you so patient? Or you must be so patient to be able to do a piece like this. Or how do I stay motivated and not get bored while working on an in-depth piece? So I thought that this would be a good opportunity to talk about this, especially with the piece that I am showing you here, because this one was a really in-depth piece that I did. I actually did this piece last year, but I finished it in like December because it obviously took a while to do, and I thought it'd be odd to post a fall still life in December, so I waited till this year, now that it's fall again. So basically, I want to just jump right into it and talk about ways that I personally can stay motivated with my art. I, in general, am not a very patient person. My family will tell you I don't have a lot of patience. The only time I do have patience probably is when it comes to my art. And even then, there are times when I'm impatient too. Like, it can be really hard to stay motivated at times, or, you know, we're all very much into instant gratification. And there was actually a time in my life where I just Bob Rossed everything. Like, I thought you had to sit down and complete a painting in one sitting. And I feel like there was like 1 year where I was like creating 3 pieces a day. And then I realized like my artwork wasn't exactly what I liked. And then I started working in colored pencil. And colored pencil forces you to slow down. Now, you don't have to work in colored pencil if you don't like, but I'm just saying, like, that's when I kind of learned to slow down, and then I ended up slowing down in the rest of my art as well, and it helped a lot. But I just want to talk a little bit about my working routine, because that has a lot to do with it. So the first tip that I have is to choose a subject that you are really interested in. Fall is my favorite season, and I love like fall decor and things like that. And so I really wanted to do a fall still life. And so I had these decorative corn, which I've drawn numerous times before because I love drawing this kind of corn. And I took them outside, I gathered some leaves, I gathered some acorns and some apples from my yard, and I started just taking a bunch of pictures. And I find that taking pictures of my, taking my own reference photos also helps keep me motivated, because I'm just really, really involved from the get-go, and I have a personal connection with my subject. Now, that being said, I know not everybody has access to the best technology or can't really get out of their own homes, and so you're not always able to take your own reference photos. But if you are, I say start small, start where you live, and just take pictures of things around you that you love, and that you can really just start there. But I chose a subject that I knew would interest me a lot. And then the next part of choosing a subject was I chose a subject with enough variety that it was going to keep me engaged in learning. And so that's my next tip for you. This piece in particular has a lot of different elements to it. There's a lot of different textures, a lot of different subjects, a lot of different colors. And I knew that some of it was going to be familiar to me because I'd drawn it before, but some of it was going to teach me because I had never drawn acorns before. And so I knew that there was going to be enough to kind of keep me excited and enough variety so that I wasn't getting bored with just drawing the same thing over and over again. And the next tip that I have is to choose a medium that you love to work with, or conversely, try something new. And so I know that's completely opposite. However, obviously, if you're really, really passionate about a medium, and you're feeling really great about that medium, it's going to keep you motivated when you're working. However, if you're feeling burnt out on a medium, then choose the exact opposite, because that's exciting and new. And so that's where, like, this one, I love colored pencil. I hadn't worked in colored pencil for a little while before doing this. If I had done like 5 different pieces in colored pencil before I did this, I might have been burnt out on the medium and not excited about it. But since I was excited about this medium because I hadn't worked on it and worked with it for a while, but it's also a medium I really love, that kept me engaged in the process. And I'm somebody who works in a lot of mediums, and so this may not apply to you. You know, there are some people who they work in a main medium, and I encourage you that if you only work in one medium, maybe try something a little new with your medium while working on a piece, and that will help you get engaged. Like, try a different technique. Like, if you're a watercolorist and you've never tried the salt technique, try putting some salt in there and seeing what kind of little designs it adds, things like that to kind of keep you excited. But if it's something that you're really passionate about, if it's your favorite medium, that alone can help you. So don't just really consider your medium before you're working, I guess is what my tip is. Consider what the medium is going to bring to the piece. Consider if this medium is going to actually work for the subject that you're doing. Like, for instance, I drew a lot of corn in this, and corn kind of has like a waxy looking texture to it anyways, so colored pencils work perfectly for it. So just kind of consider what your medium brings to the table when you are looking at your subject. And that will kind of help you stay engaged in the piece as well. So my next tip is to start small. And that doesn't necessarily mean work small, but work in small sections. And I do this a lot. I have seen people I know there's a lot of advice online to work on the whole piece at once to keep it cohesive. That has never worked for me. I am an instant gratification girl. So even though I'm working in a slow medium, I want to see what this medium's going to do. I want to see where this is going to go. So I work in smaller sections and I complete them as I go. And then each day I feel like I've accomplished something. So when I finish this apple and it's completely done, I'm thrilled to see, oh my gosh, this is where this drawing is going. I was so excited when I completed this apple. I was so excited about it. But if I had just done one flat layer on it and done one flat layer on the whole piece and then came back and looked at my drawing the next day and the whole piece just had this one flat layer and then I had to do another flat layer on the whole thing and nothing looked like it was coming together yet, I would have been bored out of my mind. So having these small pieces completed each time I'm working gives me incentive to work on the next one because I already see where it's going and I feel like I've already accomplished something. It doesn't feel like it's such a long, daunting haul. I don't feel as overwhelmed by all these different working elements next to each other. I take an element, I focus on it, I do it to completion, then I hop on to my next element, and then it's almost like I'm creating a bunch of little pieces within one big piece. And so I'm not getting bored, I'm not getting tired. There's always something new to jump to. And I have found that helps me out a lot. So even within those small little sections, though, I like to start with my background and what I call supporting characters first. And so in this particular piece, the main subject is probably the corn, and then its supporting characters would be the apples and the acorns, and the supporting characters of that would be the grass and the leaves. So, and the grass and the leaves are basically the background. Now, had this been a landscape, I would start with the sky. I would work backwards to forwards. So I'd start with the sky, then I'd start with the background trees, then I'd start with so it's very similar to that. And in a landscape, I'm more apt to work all over than I am in a still life. However, in this one, I'm still working section by section. But as you can see, I'm doing the surrounding things first, and then I'm working on the main subject that happens to be in that section. So I work on the leaves, then I worked on that corn that's in the corner. Then I worked on more leaves, then I worked on the apple. I did the grass because it was underneath all the leaves. And so I always work backwards, forwards, and I save the main character for last because that always gives me something to look forward to. So there's a few different reasons that I like to work this way. And that's because, like I said, it gives me something to look forward to. And if I mess up on the background before I get to the main subject, I'm more apt to start over. Whereas if I spend hours working on a beautiful main subject, say I'm working on a portrait, but I never gave any consideration to the background. And I work on the portrait and I work on the portrait. Then the portrait's done and it's beautiful, but then I'm like, oh, what am I going to do for a background? And then I just drop a background in. First of all, it's going to be less cohesive. You always want to consider your background because it is part of the piece. Is it a backdrop for your main subject? Yes, but it's a very important backdrop. If you just lay in any old background, your piece is not going to be cohesive. You have to put as much thought, or at least in my work, I put as much thought into the background as I do the foreground because the background's setting the tone for the foreground. And if there's not enough thought put into one element or another, it shows. It definitely shows. It's one thing if your style is to leave a white background. That's fine, but that's a choice. These are choices you need to make ahead of time. Know what you're going to do. So I always start with my background. It sets the tone for my main subject, and it gives me something to look forward to. And also, it's much easier to start over if you mess up on the background first than if you put hours and hours into that beautiful subject and then mess up on the background after. Then you'll feel like you've ruined everything. Like, at least that's how I would feel. I used to work on the subject first and then the background after. And I used to work mainly in acrylic, and trying to paint a background around something, first of all, no. But second of all, like, it's obvious, like, oh, you've spent hours and hours on this beautiful subject and the background has no thought, so ruining the background after the subject is done is way more depressing. And I feel like I'm more apt to rush the background if I have my subject done first. And because you want the whole thing to be cohesive, yeah. So anyways, that's one of the ways that I work. I work with the background first, and I find it keeps me engaged because it keeps me looking forward to doing the main subject, and it also helps me to set the tone for the main subject so everything's cohesive. Okay, so my next tip is to take frequent breaks. So, as I mentioned before, I am somebody who used to like to try and do a painting all in one sitting, and that's bad for the back. It's bad for the hands. It's bad for the painting because things get rushed. But also, it's just so hard on the body and the mind. So it's easy to get burnt out if you are going too hard and heavy on something. So just make sure you're getting up, walking around, getting a drink, getting a snack. And that also gives you the chance to come back at it with fresh eyes. So if you're just sitting there for hours looking at the same subject, you probably don't even see it anymore. And it could definitely give you burnout. But if you take a walk, come back, chances are you'll see something that you can change, which will also keep you engaged because it'll give you a new idea and a fresh idea on how to work on a subject that you've already been working on for a while. But also, a lot of times, it'll look better than you actually thought it did. Like, I'll find myself working for hours and then I'll be like, this is crap. But then if I get up and walk around for a little while and then come back at it with fresh eyes, I'm like, oh, wow, that's really not as bad as I thought it was. I only need to work on this. And so that helps to keep me engaged, but also it's really just good for the body. It's much better for you. And then also another tip that I have is to play music, play your favorite music, whatever gets you in a good mood, your favorite kind of music that peps you up, that gets you in the zone, or maybe your favorite familiar TV show in the background, one you don't really have to be engaged in. I, a lot of times, will put on something like Golden Girls because I've seen it 8 million times. It still entertains me, but I don't have to be engaged in it. I don't have to actually watch it. I can just have it in the background so my main focus can be on my artwork. Or, like I said, I love to play music, whatever makes you feel happy and in the zone. And also, kind of give yourself a treat. Bring with you your favorite drink. Put it in a travel mug so you don't accidentally dip your brush in it. But, have your favorite tea or your hot cocoa or your coffee, something that makes you feel good and happy. I don't recommend necessarily eating in the studio just because that's not healthy. I mean, you don't want to be ingesting art supplies on accident. So, but yeah. Bring yourself a treat, make your studio space a happy space that you want to be in. Put stuff around you that inspires you. So that way wherever you're sitting to create, you're already inspired and happy to be there. It's going to be your happy space. And then you'll want to be there longer. And that will keep you engaged in your artwork. Okay, so that's what I have for tips today. I hope that helps you. And everybody works differently. So this is just what works for me. If it doesn't work for you, that's understandable, but maybe I've given you some ideas that you hadn't thought of before, and hopefully that will help you stay engaged in your work. This one, it took me well over, I think I have over 10 hours of footage here, but I feel like there was more that wasn't filmed. And because I feel like 10 hours is really too fast for something this detailed, because this is one of my most detailed pieces. But yeah, this one was a doozy. And I didn't work on it every single day. That's something else that helps. I don't work necessarily every single day because I have to work a day job. And so that gave me time in between to come back to it. So I think that probably helped me a little bit too. But yeah, This is one of my favorite fall pieces. I hope you enjoyed watching it. I hope that this video helped you. And I will see you next week. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.